3 weeks into the job, I stopped wearing my grandfather's St. Christopher medal, not because the rules said to, because I forgot it once. And a demon near the popcorn cart looked at me the way a dog looks at raw meat behind glass. That was when I understood. The rules at Disneyland Ohio were not there to protect the guests. They were there to protect us from forgetting we were the weakest thing in the park. My name is Wayne Roberts. I work the overnight shift at an amusement park outside Sandusky, Ohio. 11 months now. And the only reason I am still here is that I follow 6 rules. Not from fear anymore, from habit. Because after a while, the fear turns into something quieter. It becomes the thing that keeps you breathing without you having to think about it. The park sits about 40 minutes past Cedar Point, off a road that disappears from GPS after midnight. You cannot find it by looking. You find it the way I found it. By accident, in the dark, in a car that needed brakes, with $24 in your account and a job listing that had no company name and one instruction. Arrive at 11:45. Do not be late. I should have turned around when I saw the parking lot, not because it looked dangerous, because it was full. Thousands of cars under dead arc lights in the middle of nowhere. Old cars. Station wagons with rust eating through the wheel wells, an ambulance with the windows caved in, a school bus with its headlights still on, pointed at nothing. Nobody else would have kept driving toward those gates. But I did. The first thing I noticed was not the lights or the music. It was the smell, not popcorn or lake water, though both were there. Something underneath those. Something like the inside of an old house when the heat comes back on for the first time in years. Dust burning off pipes that had not been warm in a very long time. I did not know what it meant then. The gates were iron, maybe 30 feet tall, with letters glowing overhead. Disneyland Ohio. I laughed when I saw it. Everybody knows there is no Disneyland in Ohio. But I have worked there long enough that the name stopped being funny. The man who trained me told me on my 3rd shift that the park was built in 1915, decades before Walt Disney opened anything in California. He said Walt knew about this place, more than knew. I asked if he believed that. He stared toward the castle for a few seconds. Then he said, after working here, I think people know a lot more about monsters than they let on. The first rule was about the roller coaster near the lakefront. Widow's Run. Big wooden structure. Blue lights along the tracks. Old cars with brass trim. The passengers were ghosts, mostly families, couples, and the rule was simple. Always seat loved ones together. Not for their comfort. For ours. Because the moment a ghost gets separated from whoever they died wanting to be near, the temperature drops. Every passenger on the train goes still at the same time. The lap bars come down on their own. I found out what that meant when I let a little girl end up 3 rows behind her parents. The second I moved her back, the air changed. The family started laughing again. The train rolled into the fog like nothing had happened. Craig told me about a guy named Randy while we watched another train disappear overhead. Randy had separated an older couple once for weight distribution. Husband in row 6. Wife in row 9. The ride stopped at the top of the first hill. When the train came back, the husband was gone. Lap bar still locked. They assigned another operator the next shift. Nobody mentioned Randy again. The second rule was the one everybody backstage talked about. Always stay behind the glass on the demon drop. 666 feet tall. Somebody had welded the number onto the front gate in rusted red metal. Like a warning nobody was supposed to miss. The demons loved that ride. Most of them smiled too much, and the tricks they used to get operators outside the booth were patient and specific. They learn you fast. They figure out what kind of person you are. Then they use it. The night I heard my mother's voice outside the glass, I did not move. I sat still. The fog thickened against the window. Something scratched slowly along the metal wall, checking the seams from one end to the other. Every demon in the loading cages turned toward the booth at the same moment, all of them watching. Then everything stopped at once. The fog cleared. Nothing there. One demon near the front row gave me a small nod. Shane came by at shift change and I told him. He wiped something dark off the control panel and said, "That means they are learning you." Then he looked at me through cigarette smoke. "They want your soul first, but if they cannot get that, they will settle for killing you." I think about that sentence on every drive home. The last rule is the one that sounds like nothing. Always bring the Grim Reaper a soda before your shift ends. Ghost Canyon sat at the edge of the park, overlooking Lake Erie. No music, no carnival noise, just fog rolling over black water far below the cliffs. The passengers on that ride were not fully dead. They came in hospital gowns and pajamas, confused, asking for people who were not there. The Reaper knew all their names, every one, and the train always came back empty. I sat with him near sunrise once, when the park was fading, whole sections going dark piece by piece, like a power grid shutting down in sequence. He had a 7-Up. I had one too. We watched the lake. I asked him why the place existed. He thought about it. Then he said, because the dead still like roller coasters. And even monsters get to have fun sometimes. I have turned that sentence over in my head 100 times. I still cannot decide if it is the most comforting thing I have ever heard or the most terrible. I still work there. Clock in at midnight. Clock out before sunrise. Follow the rules. Most nights feel almost normal. Ghost kids win stuffed animals. Old couples hold hands on Widow's Run. Dead soldiers watch fireworks over the lake and eat popcorn in the dark. But a few weeks ago I was on a city bus in Cleveland. Afternoon, full daylight, nothing strange about it. And before I sat down, I checked the row. I looked at who was already seated beside whom, whether anyone was separated from someone they came with. I do not know when that started. I am not sure it matters. Because if you are checking, it means something already noticed you.